I'm joined by two Tory MPs, Marcus Fish and Sir John Redwood, who are against the measures, as well as figures from the social care sector. Robert Kilgore, the Chief Executive of Renaissance Care, and Jayne Connery, founder of the Care Campaign for the Vulnerable. So, Sir John Redwood, I presume you're furious that Boris Johnson is going ahead with this complete breach of your manifesto.
I think it's an economic and political mistake. I think we should keep to our word in the manifesto. And I think this is about numbers. And so we do have to have some numbers. 12 billion is the suggested amount they're going to raise from this tax. It's a very small sum in relation to the healthcare budget and the social budget. It is not going to fix anything. A little bit more money is helpful, but it isn't the answer which is going to resolve all of the outstanding issues. And to give your audience some idea, according to the government's figures for this year, they're going to spend 230 billion on the health service, which is more than the 200 billion which all the income tax in the country will raise. So we're already in the position where the health service costs more than all the total income tax rich and poor alike pay. And then social care is another 40 billion on top. Now, I say to the government, first of all, set out proper plans on what you want to buy with your social care money and with your health money. And we're promised papers on that, but I want detailed papers. We can debate the needs, and then we discuss how we pay for it. But in the meantime, another group of numbers is very important. The Treasury has been systematically and wildly pessimistic about the state of the nation's finances. They overstated the deficit by 90,000 million last year, and already in the first 4 months of this year, they've had to admit that we're 26 billion better off than their very pessimistic forecasts in the March budget. So I do not see how they can conceivably tell us they need 12 billion to solve these problems when the numbers are swinging around so wildly. Surely the thing to do is to recover the economy from the tragedy of the COVID measures and see how much money you've got. And you should find, if you have a vigorous recovery, that a lot of money comes rushing in. And yes, of course, health and social care is going to need some extra.
Exactly, without needing to raise the tax. Robert Kilgore, you're Chief Executive of Renaissance Care. How do you respond to that from John Redwood?
Well, I broadly welcome the Prime Minister's announcement today. I mean, politicians like Sir John Redwood and Marcus Fish have for 20 years, both Labour, Conservative and Coalition, to get this sorted, and they've fundamentally failed to do so, and have just kicked it down the road time and time again, and have them pontificating about this and that, the next thing. It really gets my goat, frankly. I mean, in the real world of politicians, at the front line, that we've been, care home staff have been fighting tooth and nail at the front line in the fight against the pandemic. The staff there have done an amazing job, and they deserve to be rewarded for the efforts that they've put in. And one worry I do have about it, broadly, a lot of the concerns prior to the announcement that I had have been, I've had them satisfactorily answered during the course of today. But I have one big worry is the delay. I mean, social care need the money now, not in 3 years' time. Once it gets snaffled by the NHS, then my worry is
of course, it goes down the NHS black hole. Of course. Yeah. So look, Marcus Fish, let me bring you in. Robert Kilgore says there he doesn't want you pontificating today about the tax pledge being broken, because actually your party promised to sort this under Theresa May. You didn't. So actually, just go on and do it. That's his view.
It is right that we get it sorted out. I would agree with that part, and I'm very supportive of our social care sector. I used to be a county councillor in Somerset, so I know what the pressures in the system are. And I, like Robert, am actually very concerned that this has been trailed as something for social care, but actually social care is not going to get any money for at least a couple of years, possibly 3. And that and these are
It's
real
too late.
issues that are right now that need sorting.
But that was a political calculation, in my view, wasn't it, Marcus Fish, from Boris Johnson to say the easy way to sell this is to make it about the NHS because it's more palatable to the public.
That's been my fear, that this is all just a bit of a wheeze, and that actually what we should have done is separated off the one-off recovery from COVID costs and sort of thought about financing them in a different way. And then we think about all the recurring and ongoing costs of having an older population and the pressures on the labour force, etc., and make sure that we have a proper plan for that set out. And then we think about how to fund it. Yes, I know Robert doesn't want to talk about it, but there are potential alternatives. And that's why we've been having the discussion over the last 48 hours about what some of those alternatives could be. But yeah, I completely agree. One way or another, this system needs money right now.
Jayne Connery, as the founder of the Care Campaign for the Vulnerable, do you think that this is the best way to fund social care, a hike in national insurance, which actually hits the workers the most?
I think that this is a subject where we have got sort of conservative politicians here tonight. And with the greatest of respect, elderly, particularly elderly social care, is something that's been put on the back burner for many years, long before this governments before. And I think it's a real show of how we value our most vulnerable in society that we're actually sitting here talking about in 2 years' time, this government getting up from its backside and actually doing something to infiltrate better care and better safety.
So you don't give Boris Johnson any credit for his decision today?
Boris Johnson has made a decision because he's had to make the decision. He's now blaming the fact that, well, you know, we've had COVID and this is the reasons why we've not prioritised. We've always been a poor relation to the National Health Service, and it shows. And, you know, we have now got to look at, I mean, I completely agree with Robert. You know, it's the heroes of the social care sector that has been left, you know, during this horrific time, as well as our most vulnerable and their families. And we should be looking at a government that has prioritised this sector long before now.
Sir John Redwood?
Yes, what would you like me to comment on?
Well, I mean...
Well, John...
I guess my question is do you think that more money could have been raised for social care without increasing taxes, or do you not think the billions should be pumped in at all?
You should pay for good social care for those who need it from state sources out of general taxation, as we always have done. I think the idea of having a tax related to a cause has always been rejected in the past by the Treasury. This is particularly misleading because the sum of money involved from this tax in relation to the total cost of health and social care is small. And so it won't solve the problem, and it could mislead people into thinking that that payment of tax was meeting all these care costs, whereas it won't meet anything like those care costs because they are already considerably greater than that for good reason. So
Jayne Connery, you wanted to come in?
Grow the economy and get more general taxation, and let us have a proper discussion with the care home sector and others about what the state should pay for and how we can work with the sector, because I have a lot of sympathy for the view that we want well-trained
We've had that for 20
better paid
years.
and better terms and conditions. That was what I wanted when my parents went into a care home, wanted high-quality care, and we as a family were prepared to pay for it out of the proceeds of the sale of my parents' flat.
I understand that, but just let Jayne Connery come in. Yes,
Dan.
you come in, Jayne.
Thank
Yes.
you, Dan. I sit here in absolute aghast at what a Conservative MP is telling me. We deal with families and care workers every day where they're not even afforded quality of care because of staff shortages, because of issues within the sector. We've got so much going on. much going on at the moment that I feel that until this government actually gets real and understands the challenges within this sector, it'll never be fixed. And you can throw as much money as well as you want at it, but it's so much more than funding, than fixing. We have to
Jayne's
social care sector.
Jayne's right. Funding is key, but staffing is equal to the funding problem, and that we need a long-term, a 10-year funding plan for social care, not starting in 3 years' time, but starting now. It's overdue. Starting now would still be late.
I hear. But I think we're in agreement. I'm agreeing with you that I want more high-quality care. I'm agreeing with you that having well-trained and well-supported staff is very crucial, and that those staff need to be properly rewarded for what are often extremely difficult jobs. And I agree that the state has a role in this. Also, families have a role in it. We have a mixed system. It's not all paid for by the state, and I don't think anybody's suggesting it's all going to be paid for by the state under any of these models.
No.
But we need to sit down and discuss that, and I agree with you that I don't want to leave this 2 or 3 years. I think there has to be a conversation now about the adequacy of support for care homes from both the state sector and the contribution that private individuals and families make. And I understand to see that paper first before being asked to vote on a tax rise. I wanted to see what we were buying. What are we talking about?
Because Marcus Fish, the point that you make is that this is not the Conservative way to just try and solve problems with tax hikes. And that's the issue now, isn't it? It feels like any
something even more fundamental than that. I'm saying we don't need a tax hike, and the tax hike itself is not sufficient money.
Yeah, no, I understand.
All the problems they're talking about.
I understand. And Marcus Fish, the question, I guess, for me is, how can we ever, after this, trust the Conservative Party when it comes to tax promises again?
Well, I think, the risk is that as the economy sort of gets back up and going and the furlough schemes come off, as some of the rent suspensions are lifted, there actually is potential for some pretty big headwinds in certain parts of the economy, and actually raising taxes at this moment seems quite risky to me. So that's why I don't want to support this. That I think is something that I've tried to make plain as to why. But it's, I think clearly the Prime Minister does have the right to set out his fiscal direction, and while people remain unhappy within the party about it, I think we'll have more debates on this when the legislation comes forward, because I think the mood in the party is to have those debates about this tax rise. But yeah, I feel that manifesto promises are really important, and I stood on a promise of trying to restore trust in politics in what was then a quite safe Lib Dem seat where a promise had been broken.
Robert Kilgore, let me give the final word to you. Final word to you, Robert Kilgore.
The Prime Minister should be congratulated for having the courage to actually do something after 20 years.
Congratulated for breaking a promise?
Yeah,
I think he should be congratulated for putting the issues around adult social care at the top of the national conversation.
He made that promise before the pandemic, and we've been through an unprecedented situation. And I don't have a problem with him breaking that promise. I think that's a common sense thing to do. I do worry about the money being snaffled by the NHS, and that care workers and care companies that will be paying for the next 3 years this increased national insurance before it seems, unless I've been told wrong. I'd like to know how much money up front social care is getting. But if they're going to have to pay extra tax for 3 years, they need the money now. They don't need more tax on the workers and the companies over the next 3 years to then get something.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Can I just very quickly say that we also should be questioning why now? We've been waiting how many years for an injection of funding and there's been too many delays, and we've got to ask the question, why?
OK. I understand. Passionate clash tonight. That was the Chief Executive of Renaissance Care, Robert Kilgore, the founder of the Care Campaign for the Vulnerable, Jayne Connery, and Conservative MPs Marcus Fish and Sir John Redwood. Thank you all.